Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Was Gold but is now turned into shit podcast, kindly sponsored by ACD&B, who are a branding and creative design agency based in Farsley, Leeds. They create standout brands. So, for any companies out there that need a brand new logo or a brand refresh, just get in touch with ACD&B. Thanks as always to them for sponsoring us, not just on the podcast, with the fanzine and everything else. This is the match review panel for Catalan Dragons versus a bunch of completely useless, inept people. Joining me is Eddie, as always, my right-hand man, my co-host, but our amazing Statman Reese.
I'm a stat.
Freeze.
So I'll see you at Castleford review, okay?
Shit the bed. I don't know what's more
Emergency
disappointing. I don't know what's more disappointing. The fact that I actually watched every single minute of that. So I don't know if I'm more disappointed in myself or that shit, absolute shit show.
I watched it until 10 minutes before half time and then put it back on. Just because, to be fair, whether we're winning, losing, or whatever, I still would have done this. Fed the kids, put the kids bath, bed, etc. So that would have happened regardless. But turning it back on, knowing that wasn't missing anything. Although I did expect us to have scored.
We never looked like it. I mean, Sinfield was a bit unlucky with his chance.
Oh, I saw that. It ricocheted off
Tompkins. I'm not giving that twat credit. But we just didn't look like scoring at any point. There was no structure, no effort, no passion, no anything. Like, just what have they been doing in training? We've had known spine players for a couple of weeks. What have they been doing in training? They must have been practicing structure, set plays, things to do. How we're going to play. It's just everything is shit, isn't it?
Everything is shit. So that's the third swear word, I think, already. So again, profanity warning for any children listening.
George.
For George. Cover your ears, George. Anyone else who doesn't like hearing profanity or the odd swear word. One might slip out or two might slip out tonight. So just be warned of that. This is the match review panel for Catalan Dragons versus Leeds Rhinos. In true Lockpod fashion, people are going to be listening, watching this, listening back on Spotify and iTunes saying, is he actually going to say what are the positives? Well, I am, because me and Reese have just spoken and there is a positives. There's about 7, 8, 900 of them, aren't there, Reese?
Yeah, and it's the unfortunate souls that were sat in the corner in that stand in Catalan today, because that was probably one of the bigger followings I think we've seen at Catalan for a while. Yes. I think so. I don't know. The club needs to recognise something there, because the amount of money.
If they've got anything left of them, any ounce of credibility, they better recognise those people that have just been out there to watch that absolute horror show.
Amount of money those people have spent on flights, hotels, tickets, all of the above. It's £200 minimum per person, depending on what flights you get and how good you are at finding hotels. But that is just, the fans, the turnout was brilliant. And at points, you could somehow hear them singing March On Together. I would have struggled unless I was really, really drunk. I don't think I would have been able to stand on my feet and sing March On Together watching that.
Those fans were absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
They were absolutely incredible. And that's Leeds Rhinos today. That's Leeds Rhinos. Not the players on the pitch, not the coach. Leeds Rhinos today was those fans. They deserved better. Every single one of them. And you know what? I really hope, and I'm quite certain actually, that not one of those will have let this game ruin their trip. I think there'd have been no. You're not. I'm not letting you cover here, George. You bastards ruin this for me. There'll be families out there. There'll be groups of friends. All had a really good trip. Do not let that 80 minutes ruin it for you. Don't just.
Just
I hope
go
to
back
God.
to the pub.
Yeah.
Get involved in the Rugby Union World Cup that's over there. Or just forget about the
Wow.
game.
That's how
Enjoy the
bad we
sun.
are.
Yeah, well, I like both codes, so it's fine. But
I don't mind it.
go watch the Rugby Union. Just go do something. Just forget. Take your Rhinos top off. Go buy a French tourist shirt and just sit in the bar
And just
and
live it
enjoy a
up.
nice cold beer.
And just forget about this. Do not let this result spoil a great weekend or day, whatever you've had out there in France. You deserve better.
Talk about spoiling a great weekend. We are already jumping to next week, but we just had a comment, which is me and my missus are coming to Leeds next weekend for our wedding anniversary. We've tickets for Friday's game. Dare we attend?
I'd check the weather.
It depends how much you like your wife or your
Yeah,
husband.
and
depending on who you are.
I'd check the weather as well. If it's decent weather, as we've said a million times, Headingley there's not much better place for food and drink, and easily accessible to Leeds. But if it's pissing it down, I won't bother with the game.
Only positive is those fans that have gone over there, and like we've said, the club need to recognise something.
They have to
for them.
If they have any ounce of credibility left at this club, they need to recognise the people who've just been out there to watch that. So that's the positive. There's 12,221 negatives. But I want to start with the biggest one because I can't remember a time I've been this or even embarrassed really. Because sometimes you say, "Oh, that would embarrass him," but I don't really feel other results and previous results back to back. I've never been more embarrassed than I am now. I'm thoroughly shocked to my core. What is it? 111 points unanswered in 2 games.
Yeah, so I've got it here. So it's 111.
We can hardly hear you, Reese.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
It's 111 unanswered points in 2 games. It's the worst defeat in Super League history. Close to our actual worst defeat in history, so it's not far off. It's the first time we've conceded. Sorry, I don't know. I'm really confused about what's going on the microphone right now. It's the first time we've conceded 50 points in back-to-back games since 1996, and it's the first time we nilled in back-to-back games in the Super League era.
I'm 36, and it's the worst 2 results back to back in my lifetime. And I'm assuming there's people watching this, listening to this, who are older than me, saying similar. I can't think anyone alive can remember 2 results worse than this. That's how deep this goes for me. I think. I mean, we talk about Rowan and whether he has to stay or he has to go. But do you think, Reece, that if you are to sack a coach, is the time now after 2 results back to back like this, but such an enormous off season in the pipeline? So for me, if you are going to sack Rowan Smith, it would have to be now, not as we said on the previous podcast, 5, 6, 7 games into next year. If they have any, Gary Heverington, whoever at the club has any doubts about Smith, they need to sack him immediately because this off season is way too important. Would you agree?
I think it goes much wider than that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I saw a comment earlier saying, is it the coach? Barry Mack, Agar, Ferner, now Smith. Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
And it starts and ends with one person, and that is Gary Heverington. And I found the article this week from Gary quite strange because the way I read it, and it might have been just read it in the how I feel at the moment as a Leeds Rhinos fan, but how I read that was in a way that Gary was distancing himself from the decisions. He was saying that Rowan was in control of the recruitment and the renewals, and he was very much saying that Rowan was in full control of all things rugby. And the way I read into that was, or looked into that was, is that Gary distancing himself from it so that he's distanced from the decision, so he's giving him the platform to get rid of Rowan if he needs to. But equally, why would he do that if he's saying he's got full confidence in him? Look, that squad today, again, we said it last week, would the best coach in the world been able to do something with that? Did they be able to do something better than that? I really think you miss a JJB character in that coaching setup. He was fuming at halftime. He did really well not to swear, I think, on halftime on camera, to be honest. And he, the way what he said and how he talked, when they asked him, "What would you say at halftime?" And what he said was just, if you want to be a leader, you want to wear that shirt, you put the effort in, you lead now. And I just don't see Rowan being able to do that. Is how he carries himself. I don't see him being able to give a bollocking, because that's if I was in that change room at halftime, I'd have absolutely well let into them. It'd be the Fergie treatment. So, to answer your question, if they're going to change it, they have to change it this off-season.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But I think it goes further than that. Shit rolls downhill.
So, just on Gary Hetherington, then, do you think it's a case of Gary Hetherington out the club, which to me is a no and incredibly drastic, or do you think it's a case of Gary Hetherington stepping back from rugby squad selections, signings, and bringing someone else in, like a director of rugby?
I'm not. I think it'd be good to have clarity on who's doing what and what decisions. But that article seems to suggest that Rowan is making the decisions on recruitment and renewals, but Gary's been helping him with the negotiations and stuff, because it sounded like that's what he'd done for the Lucky Miller deal. But I do think, I'm not saying Gary should be going out or Gary out, but have the right people with the right skill set and the right roles to help this move this forward. Because whatever we've been doing for 6-7 years in what has been called a transition, which is not a transition, it's a capitulation of a rugby club.
That's what we're seeing, yeah.
Needs to change. It's a complete. I mean, this was a runners-up in a grand final last year, and the state we're in now is just apocalyptic. So
word. Hear that, Cameron?
So how something needs to change in that structure, and whether that's Gary still being there, taking a step back and putting better people in the right places, I think that, and maybe allowing Rowan just to focus on being a coach might be a difference.
Potentially, I do think that we need fresh eyes on the recruitment. Gary, whether we'll ever get it confirmed, whether it's Gary running it or Rowan, I've always felt, like we said at the start of the year with the new signings, that this felt different, and it was Rowan kind of pushing this. He had that link with Nene McDonald and Luke Cooley, and it felt different this time. Good or bad, it felt different. Whether we can stick to that moving forward, I'm not so sure. I think it's time for fresh eyes, for Gary to not leave the club. I would never, ever say that, because I have far too much. The man, what he's done for us is incredible. But in terms of that structure, that kind of director of rugby to come in and work with Rowan on that recruitment, I think that's vital now. Because we had news this week that Nene McDonald is playing for Papua New Guinea in September. So that, to me, confirms everything's okay with baby and wife, because otherwise, if it wasn't, you would assume, so I'm putting two and two together, he wouldn't be playing. So that would mean there's an issue between Nene and the club, or Nene's just gone completely AWOL. So he's not coming back. That's going to be confirmed this week, you would imagine. So my concern last week on the Wigan review, this is just the same podcast, by the way. It's just the same as last week, but slightly worse, or even more worse. I said on last week's podcast, on the Wigan review, that if Nene McDonald leaves us, I was clinging on to the tiny bit of hope that Nene would come back and stay. I think now that he's leaving, we have too much to address in an off-season. How do you feel about that? I think that's a bit OTT.
I think we had a lot to address anyway.
Regardless, I
But
agree.
regardless, and Nene's impact this year has been great. A player that I really liked.
Player of the year, potentially.
Oh no, he's a prick now. Now that we know everything's okay in terms of at home, because obviously my initial thoughts with anything was like, let's not overreact. We don't know how his wife is. We don't know how the kid is. Let's just let things lie first. But the fact he's being picked for Papua New Guinea this weekend, like you say, clearly means that everything is fine. He's just been a twat. He's just been a twat. Yeah. And he's completely absent without leave. This is my HR head coming on now. Like he will get dismissed now because he's AWOL. And then to go do that clearly shows that there's nothing wrong. So he is. I mean, I'm absolutely gutted because I loved him to pieces. I thought he was brilliant. I raved about him every week.
Heartbroken.
But he's a prick now. I hate him.
I'm devastated because.
But yeah, it's an even bigger job now. But it kind of looks back to what I was saying a bit earlier. Some of the fans in here on the comments were saying that Gary's saying Rowan's in charge, but Rowan in his press conferences has had no idea what's been going on. You know, with the Blake Austin thing, with Nene, he's had no idea what was going on. So that's confusing things, isn't it? Because Gary's saying he's in control, but in the press conferences, Rowan's had no idea. So that's what made me think about the article. Is Gary bullshitting us and setting up Rowan to fail? I don't know. It just something.
One of them is bullshitting. We don't know which one, but one of them is talking shit.
Something at the core of this rugby club is rotten right now, and I can't put my finger on where it is.
We need a lot of clarification here, and we need some transparency.
And like you say now, the recruitment for the next season is even harder.
Oh, without a doubt. Now that then is that was my, as I said earlier, that was my last crumb of hope. And now that we need a 4, a 6, and a 7 when we were struggling, well, we need a 7/6 along with other positions where people will be in the comments now or shouting at the phones or however listening to this, saying, "Oh, we need a prop or we need a hooker." It's too much now. There's no way this can be fixed in one off season. And I hate to say it, but it's another, or we are still in the same transition period. I just feel there's way too much now in terms of this squad, the attitude of the squad, the coach is up in the air. We don't know if Gary's running the show, if Rowan's running recruitment. It's all what ifs, maybes, and no one seems to have a clue. Just had the two worst results in history, in people living memory. I don't think I'm being OTT when I say that.
And the thing that annoys me in a way is that me and you are stupid enough that we will renew our season ticket next year. Because
what do you think? Do you think? Just onto before you carry on in your tangent, or whatever you're speaking about there. Sorry, I'm just thinking about that Castleford game. Do you think potentially people could vote with their feet, Reese, and say, you know what, I'm not going, and then Gary looks around, whoever involved looks around and goes, right, something major here needs to be done now. Because I'm just thinking, if there is a large crowd there forecast for that last home game, maybe Gary, the club, kind of think, well, we've still got the fans.
I don't know. It's difficult because I'm not going, but it's because I'm getting married, so it's just slightly different. So if I wasn't, would I still go? I would probably still go because I think for part of me going to the rugby is more than just going to watch rhinos. It's time I spent. It's my time I spend with my dad, my uncle, and my cousin. It's a family thing that we do.
Yeah, much more.
So it's more than that. So I think, and it might be different for others, and in terms of the positions that they're in, but I go for that, but obviously want Leeds to win regardless. I don't think Leeds fans have really yet. I can't remember a time they have voted in the feet. I don't know what it would take for fans to do it. I know there's a couple of people in the comments have said they're not renewing season tickets, and I've seen the stuff on Facebook as well that people have said that, but people may do. But I'm one of those people that's stupid enough that will renew their season ticket regardless, because it does mean more than that. But they need the crowd to put the money back into the club after spending all the money on the stadium. And that a winning side at Headingley, a good side, week in, week out, will pull 16, 17, if not 18,000.
Yeah,
easily.
Out.
So whether Gary sees that, I don't know. I don't know what it would take for people not to. I feel like it'd have to take a bit of a movement, but I'm not sure who's willing to start it. Maybe Newman.
Daryl Orford's has to leave the club. Do you agree?
That today, you know what? That little bit of hope in me today. I thought, you know what? Maybe we'll get a reaction today. Maybe we'll just see a bit.
We are so stupid, me and
we're
you.
so stupid.
We still have, no matter what, no matter how many times this club takes a big steaming hairy turd right on our heads, we still have that tiny crumb of hope.
Tiny little bit of hope, and I thought, come on, there might be. I thought maybe we'd only lose by 30. Maybe we'd only lose by 30 today. And then we got they knocked on. I thought, okay, we can get the ball. At least, if we get a first score, at least we can get a score for one. And then first thing, it was a. And then we had the most dreadful pass, and then the most dreadful pass catch attempt from Alford. And that just set the tone for me. And then on the next set, they just ran down their left edge, and we just go bye. We just literally walked past.
It's that way, gents.
Just that way. Yeah, that way.
In fact, excuse me, sorry to bother you. I know you're trying to score a try. If you go closer to the sticks, you can kick it straight over from you on the conversion. Following the try.
They didn't need to. Adam Kieran was slotting them over from everywhere today.
He was absolutely dynamite.
Yeah. But Wigan fans are watching.
I know he'd have been a great replacement for Nene.
But yeah, so that was a tone setter today. I mean, Alford's he was dreadful today. I looked at Matt Shaw's ratings before I came on, and how he didn't get a 1 out of 10, I have no idea.
Just Matt being too polite. That's all that is.
He got 2.
Yeah, still again too polite.
Matt's collective score for the team was 17.
Wow.
For the first 13, for the starting 13, it was like something like 17, 18 or something.
Matt, that's 17 too many. That's a big fat 0 for them all. Should have been mine.
See, that was the tone setter for the day for me.
Yeah, and the reaction to that, everything you just said there, but to that knock on, the Alford's knock on, the reaction to that was nothing. It was dead. No one gave 2 tosses. And I just thought, we're in the same mindset as Wigan here. We're in for an hiding, and that were within. Was that a minute? That first
it was 50 seconds. It was their first set, so it must have been a minute, 2 minutes.
And I bet I'm not the only one. Probably yourself, people listening back to this, thinking I agree that the camera zoomed onto Daryl Alford's face. There were no emotion, just pretty much shrugging his shoulders up to say, "What does everybody expect? I don't give a shit. I don't care." Then they just waltz past them all and score, and you think, right, we're in for a serious hiding here. I think
there was some of the comments from the Rhinos Twitter account and some of the tries today. I think one of them was, I can't remember who it was, forces the way through for a try, and I went, we literally just watched. It was literally the parting of the sea. That's the gif I put up. It literally was, there you go. I'll step left, you step right, and then if you just go there, that's where you can score.
Harry Newman got sin-binned.
Well, to be fair, they took a dig at him in the sky after the game as well.
Did you see that?
Both. Well, do you know what?
I wasn't watching.
The player was down, and then to be fair, he comes in with a late hit whilst the player's on the floor.
Oh, it was on Tompkins, wasn't it?
And which to be fair, it's kind of worth it. And then stays lying on Tompkins, and then he stands up and looks at the referee and goes, "What for?" It's like, you've just hit him defensively on the floor. Pretty much. JJB laid into him, and Paul Cook laid into him after the game. JJB said what we've always said, saying that would have happened back in the day. He'd have been grabbed hold of and had been told that doesn't happen. So
it's getting. I'm really bored of Harry Newman now. He's so boring.
Well, they said on Sky, is it time for Harry Newman to leave? It's clearly not working out at Leeds. And to be honest, someone's put in the comments, and I've also seen reports elsewhere that he's offered a fight to a fan after the game as well. Again, I don't know if that's true. I've just seen it in the comments. I've seen it online. But it's just, Harry's a phenomenal player, but this petulance and this is the way he carries himself. He just needs a break. He needs to go somewhere else.
Whether that's the off season to change and adapt.
Yeah.
And listen, if he changes, it's only his attitude he has to change. Look, his body's been failing him. He can't really do much about that, but his attitude can change. And I just think it's so boring now. He is the most boring Leeds player I've ever seen play for Leeds. His attitude bores me to absolute tears. And it's that petulance that gets to me, as everyone knows. I can't stand it anyway, whether it's a Leeds player or a Wigan player or whoever. When you're losing, it drives me mad when we're losing more. Because I think when we're getting beat, like we did at Wigan and like we were today, you're fragile. You've got a fragile mindset. And it's in those moments that you probably know you're going to get beat because you've got 30 or 40 on board against you. You got 50 on you week before. You've just got to grin and bear it, bite the bullet, knuckle down, get through the game with as much effort as you possibly can. You don't have to act like a petulant little bitch and start flaring up, because it's doing yourself no favours. It's doing your teammates no favours. And it's doing the club no favours. It doesn't benefit anyone but the opposition for that penalty or for that yellow card. It has to stop. It has to stop now. It can't continue. It cannot continue.
He needs someone to grab him by the neck. I mean, I think JJB would be the sort of person as a coach that would be maybe get something the best out of him. But it's the same. It's his quality is so great, but his frustration should be channeled into his game. But he's the sort of player that can lead with that. If he puts that into his head, he puts that out of his takes that out from petulance and into his game. That's the sort of player that would have meant we lost 61-6 today. But at least we'd have gone. You know what? At least I could see him trying absolutely everything. And to be honest, 1-17 today, I didn't see any passion from anyone. I didn't see any leadership. I didn't see any effort from anyone.
Absolutely deplorable. Every single one of them.
So Harry's not on his own today, but we
saw singling him out for that petulance and bad attitude again.
But we saw more of it again today.
But we had Sean Wayne speaking about him and his attitude and whether he's going to get picked for England. So the England coach, whatever your thoughts are on Sean Wayne, mine aren't that good, but he's highlighted Harry and his attitude. I think now Harry Newman is in an area in his career where his attitude and the way he's playing the game is outweighing his talent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, someone has put in there Billy Big Bollocks with the temperament of a toddler. But yeah, his petulance is overweighting his quality.
And that can change so easily.
But it's only him that can change that.
Yeah, he just stops doing it. And the second he stops doing it, stops reacting, changes his game, everyone then focuses on his talent, and then the opposition aren't winding him up to become, to flare up and concede penalties and sin bins. I didn't see the Sam Lasoni sin bin. Did you?
I did. And to be credit to Lasoni, he probably saved Rhinos from a record ever defeat. Whether you want to make that a positive or not.
Man of the match.
I mean, I don't like the way he smiled after it, but to be fair, he did save a try from being scored, which would have made it, I think we would have lost 65-0 instead, which I think would have been our biggest record defeat. So, but that wasn't great. But see, look, I'm not gonna rile it. I'm not gonna have a go at him over it because he did stop a try at the end of the day. Not ideal.
It was worth it then.
I kind of think it was. When like a footballer just completely takes someone out when they're 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper, and they get red card, but they still draw the game or lose. But it was the equivalent of that, apart from they didn't get more points.
I can't believe that we're after a halfback. There was a halfback at Catalans available, and Hull KR have signed him, Tyrone May.
I know, but Catalan have only got 4 other halfbacks, haven't they? Hull KR, sorry. KR have got 4 other halfbacks, so they're really short, to be fair. So, we've got loads, haven't we?
We'll have one of them. I mean, Tyrone May, what a player. And
I think we would have made any player look good today. There isn't a team in Super League we would have beaten today. And you know what? Top half of the championship. If that was the qualifiers, back in the old format,
Yeah.
we would have lost to a championship side today. Featherstone would have beaten us quite simply. I think Toulouse would have beaten us. I
Do
would
you
have
think
backed.
Bradford would have beat us?
Yeah, easy. Yeah,
No way.
because they would have had more passion, more heart, and more desire, and that can count for a lot of things. So I honestly there wasn't. I think most championship teams that have beaten us are giving us a good go today.
Do you think you kind of mentioned there about JJB being fuming on Sky and what Sky asking him what he'd say at halftime? All of our YouTube comments have mentioned that and spoke about JJB quite a bit tonight as we record. Do you think, because we always speak about that golden generation, which we always will, it's our golden generation. Is it now that we've got do we need someone closer to the players from that golden generation for moments like this to say, look, we went through this when we were winning everything, and this is how we dealt with it, and as a team? Or do you think
I don't think it
is
needs
time to
necessarily
cut
someone
away?
from the golden generation, but I do think if Rowan's going to stay, he either needs to deliver that message and change how he does things. I saw a lot of people saying after Sean Wayne's comments this week about Newman that they'd take Sean Wayne, and to be honest, I would, because he wouldn't allow for any of that petulance from Newman, but equally he would have given them 2 fucking full barrels at half time and at full time. And I don't think Rowan will deliver that message. So, and I think, to be honest, it shouldn't be from a second lieutenant. It shouldn't be from a JJB or a Chev Walker. It comes from the head coach.
Yeah.
So, look, JJB will be disgusted because he's a fan. He's a Leeds boy, and he's played. He gave everything in that shirt, and he would have been offended by what he's seen today because the people he played with would never have played with that effort or desire or passion.
Anything else? Everything is shit.
Everything is shit. You're right. The good news is there's only one more game left of the season.
Yeah, that's true. I am really interested on that attendance. I think they count season tickets regardless of whether someone attends.
Probably
type
do.
Thing. So that'll pad it out. But I am going. I'm a fool. But I am interested on that attendance just to see visibly, even if the club do pad it out on the season tickets that don't attend, just to see if people are voting with their feet at the pure disgust at what rotten state the club is in at the moment.
What do you think the club need to do something? I know because Gary's obviously released 2 articles this week, which is very Gary. Very, he's only so many Yorkshire Evening Post articles that Gary Hetherington can release. And to be honest, everything he said this week was just, everyone will just go, well, that's just fucking bollocks, isn't it?
I think he needs to speak about the fans. I think the club needs to do something for those fans, and I really mean that. I'm not being OTT. You have to put it into these are the 2 worst results in lifetimes that cannot be forgotten. They must do something with those fans first and foremost. And other than that, he has to speak again. Someone has to speak again. I don't care if they're uncomfortable about it. They must speak. You can't sit silent on this. And whether it's, I don't know what they'll say, because I guess they're not going to win regardless, because if they stay silent, everyone was saying you must speak, you must address this. And then if they do try to address it, people say, what a load of absolute waffle. But you have to say something. Something is better than nothing, I believe.
Yeah, something's definitely better than nothing. And I think they have, like you say, the absolute minimum is addressing those fans that went and doing something for them in some form or manner. I think they really need to provide clarity on where they see the direction going forward. And I think Rowan is getting a lot of shit. I don't know what many coaches would have been able to do today. I think there'd be coaches who would be able to do better. But I just think that the challenge is so big this summer that I just don't have the confidence in the club at the moment to turn things around. And I'm not, and I can't really put the finger on what would change it, to be honest, because I just take the communication that comes from the club really with a pinch of salt, because the messages are mixed and it just doesn't match up with what we're seeing. And part of me, I'd love to see the behind the game. Actually
after a loss,
because that I've said that a couple of times now. Someone's just said we need Jesse Marsh clarity. I think this is worse. I suppose Big Sam when you need him. And the thing is, the thing I'm actually really worried about, not really worried about, because we've got bigger things to worry about in terms of the off season, but I am scared shitless for next Friday of what could happen.
Well, in terms of next Friday, we'll kind of come to it when we preview it. Lucky us. If Rowan Smith, everyone can probably see where I'm going with this, but if we lose to Castleford, whether it's by 1 point or 50 points, Rowan Smith will be sacked. Make no mistake about it. He will be sacked. So if he wants to save or salvage his career, he needs to beat Castleford. If we lose to Castleford, he will be sacked. But then I'm still under the impression that if the club have their doubts about him now, after Wigan, after today's result, today's hammering, then they should sack him in the morning. He should go. Because there's no point, if the club at Gary Everton, whoever involved, have concerns about Rowan Smith, there's no point giving him the off-season, moulding this, trying to sort this shit show out with signing players, and then doing it 5, 6, 7 games into the year. Pointless. Completely pointless. You're just starting again.
Yeah, because that's then transition 4.4 or whatever you want to call
transition 4.4. That should be our first T-shirts. That's the next badge.
the next training range.
The next training.
Transition equals evolution.
Equals evolution. Progress. We played well. The new kit.
Proud.
I've got a feeling that because Hull KR released their new kit recently, and that's Oxen Sports, and Oxen do tend to, this time of year, the players, probably Castleford, but
KR have released theirs already.
They have, yeah, and I think the new kit release planned now, the club, it might be planned, the club might be thinking, should we release it as a distraction? But people are just going to jump all over it anyway to say, we don't need this, we need more from the club.
I bet
the
marketing department has had to reschedule their tweets.
Massively.
All their social media week on week going.
Don't do the kit on Monday.
Yeah, don't release the new kit. Don't do the season tickets. Just, let's move that back again. Move it back. We've got to wait for a positive.
Back 2 weeks.
Yeah. They've got to, they'll be waiting for something, a tiny little thing positive.
Someone jump into the scheduled tweets. What have we got coming through here?
Just delete it all.
Running through them all now. Delete.
Just delete it all.
Run it through the shredder.
Yeah.
Oh, shall we?
But yeah, I think you're right. I think if we we'll go into that preview. If he loses to Cass, I think Rowan will be gone. And will I be upset? No, because after these 2 defeats and going to Cass, I'd be disappointed because I thought the project was going to work, and I'll be really, really annoyed because we're just starting again, and I'm a bit bored of that now. But in the reality of the situation is that's where we are. We have a restarting again with Rowan, or we're restarting again with something new, or everything changes in terms of what we said in terms of a new structure in that rugby department. But I think the latter of the option is the least likely.
Well, that's the issue, because people might be saying, "Oh, you hypocrite! You said it's a long-term deal." Listen. I think it can still work under Owen. People will be saying, only because people are saying, "Oh, he's at it again." But just because there's so much to do in terms of the off-season and recruitment, that I can't see it going right in terms of us getting back to that top 4. I just think it's so far and beyond.
Someone said today we weren't even in the top 6 at any week this year.
Christ. I thought we got top 6 once.
I thought we might have been. I thought we might have been at least for 1 week. We must have been for 1 week.
Yeah. But that's my opinion. But if the club as I've said 3 times. If they're not certain on him, they should sack him now. But if he loses to Castleford, they will sack him. Of that, I'm so concerned about our recruitment for next year, for 2024. I think it's definitely going to bleed into 2025, without a doubt. I think we're going to be having this same conversation.
It's a good job. It's a good job they're not using us to sell season tickets for next year, isn't it? Get them now because 2025 will be better.
But then in 2022, we said 2024 would be the one.
Yeah, we did.
That'll be the one. That'll be the season.
That's that little bit of hope in us again that's killing us. But in terms of what that side looks like next week, I just don't know what we can do. Walters
It'll
will
be the
back.
same again. It'll be the same that played today.
Walters will be back. I'd rather see Cam in the halves. I think the Reece Martin at half. I feel really bad to say this because he's a young lad. I haven't seen anything from Sinfield. And I know it's difficult as a young lad coming into a game where the club is at rock bottom morale-wise and against 2 very good teams. And it might be too early for him, but I'm just not sure it's good for him to be in that squad right now.
There's no one else, Reece.
I know, but I know. And I've seen people say, "Well, we should be playing the kids and stuff." I don't think it's fair to play the kids in this circumstance. They don't deserve to be on the end of a thumping because it's not them that's put them in this position. You know, these players that have played all year have to front up and they have to deliver. It's the last home game of the season. The season's done. It's that awful saying we're playing for pride, but they're the ones that have got us in this position. So they're the people that should be responsible and put on the pitch and made to deliver a performance.
I don't know. Part of me thinks some of those younger players should definitely play against Cass. But then the other part of me thinks if we do get beat, they are lambs to the slaughter. So it's a double-edged sword, really. Because players like Daryl Alford just should never play for the club again. Players like James Donaldson, I know he got the new deal, just shouldn't be playing for this club.
He got a penalty for a high tackle today, though.
Yeah, return to form, James. Every time there's players like those in the squad, and I don't just mean them, I mean them in our current squad, but over the previous squads, there's been players where I've felt they shouldn't be playing at this point in the year. It should be an academy player coming in and getting some game time. But then again, the other side of me thinks if we get beat, they're lambs to the slaughter. But one thing you will get from an academy lad who comes into the side is they are going to play with every fibre of their being. They will play for the shirt. You know, they're going to be 200 times better than Darren Alfords were today. So I don't think you lose anything, even if it's just Alfie Edgell on the wing.
Yeah, I think there's some academy players that I think would definitely to fit that criteria for me. And I think Tom Nicholson-Watton is one and Joe Gibbons is the other. I mean, Keithley were raving about them. And I feel really bad for Keithley, actually, because we've taken them as part of our squad, not played them, and Keithley have got a relegation battle on, which is a bit harsh. But maybe I think you're partially right for me, but equally, though the players that have got us here are also responsible and owe it to the fans, especially after the last 2 games, to front up at Headingley. I don't believe they deserve to hide. I believe they have to come out on the pitch, face the music, and then react appropriately.
What do you think the atmosphere will be like prior to the game? Do you think
I think it'll be toxic quite quickly.
Especially if Cass score first.
I think if Cass score first, if we knock on quite quickly, as soon as that first little negative thing happens, and it could be very minute of a negative, I think it could turn quite quickly. There will be boos quite quickly, I think. At half-time, certainly, especially if we're losing.
If we are losing and the game's slipping away from us, do you think the players have the mindset to try and pick themselves up and say, right, we're getting booed here, we deserve this, to try and win the game? I'm creating scenarios here, but I think this side is so fragile, kind of like we said earlier with when Alford's knocked on after however many seconds, and I just felt these have gone already.
From what I've seen today,
the first boos, I think they'll crumble.
Yeah, from what I've seen today, I don't think so.
Do you think they deserve booing? Have you ever booed Leeds Rhinos before?
Yeah, I think I have. Probably have. What they deserve doing? I think if I booed on Friday, it would be at the club in general. It wouldn't be necessarily towards the players, because I think there's not a single person accountable. I think there's a lot of people that are involved in where we've got to in this capitulation, and as I've said, shit rolls downhill. I don't really like booing players. I'm much more of a person that would rather be positive and and everything else. I suppose it depends on the manner of Friday, doesn't it?
Yes.
If we get a repeat of this, and you full well know that Blake Austin's going to be like,
oh God, is he allowed to play against us?
Oh no, he might get if he does play.
If he plays, we're getting beat.
If the adrenaline that is running through him will be the equivalent of like overdosing on steroids, like if he is allowed to play.
Super serum.
Yeah. So, but he got sin bin, didn't he, last night? So I don't. From what I've heard, I don't think he'll be playing. Joe Binns in his comments is saying Austin can play, but
Joe Binns in our YouTube comments said he can play. Well, if Blake Austin plays against us, that's one of the most Leeds things Leeds could ever do. How Leeds is that? Allowing him to play against
he will
us.
be a twat.
He will be stone cold. He will transform into stone cold Blake Austin. Couple of 40-20s, 3 tries, 4 assists. Are you scared? Are you scared of this game? Are you scared of this game because you think we'll get beat?
Yeah, I am really quite worried.
So in terms
which is pathetic.
Yeah, well, this is where we are. This is what the club have whittled us down to nothing, to non-entities, to tiny little grains of sand. At the start of the year, we were a fucking enormous 200-year oak tree. We're massive. We were strong. Nothing could knock us down. Now we're just a tiny piece of rotting bark covered in dog shit that someone just stood on in Miggy Woods. In terms of the squad, then, and any changes there for you? What would you do, Reese? You're the coach for Cass. What would you do?
I'd take Sinfield out entirely. That's not because I feel like he's been pretty bad. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So I'd take Sinfield out. I'll have Martin and Cam at half-back if I need to, and just play with an extra prop and forward, just so that we can win the middle, because we were awful in the middle today. We've been awful in the middle against Wigan, so I think having an extra prop will allow us to run up the middle a bit more, because in reality, having Cam at half-back doesn't change how our structure's been played at all at the moment, really. But I think having Cam in a more designated playmaker role will mean that we can produce a bit more structure, I think. I'd be bidding Alfords as well. I'd keep Hanley on the wing. I'd find a centre from somewhere. Don't know where yet. And then I'd like to see Walters back in the side as well, because I think Walters makes a difference. Ruin won't be playing next week because it looks like he dislocated his elbow or something like that. It looked very nasty.
Yeah.
So I think Walters to come back in as well will be useful. So yeah, there's not much we can do to really change. I think that's the changes I'd make. I don't think it's impactful, but that's what I would do in this instance.
Yeah, I'd put Cammy at 6, but with Jack. I'd keep Jack there. I'd put Cammy in the house with him, and then the only other change really is Walter's coming back in, and then Alfie Edgell or another academy winger on the wing.
There's that to Chambe, isn't there? That really big lad.
Yeah, any of them. Yeah, whether it's a young fullback or a young centre or a young winger, get them out there, get them playing this game. Prediction for it?
Well, I predicted 48-6 today, to Catalan, thinking that was conservative, and it wasn't. Cass haven't been that great. If Austin plays, I think he'll have a stormer.
Make no mistake.
So I'll do this prediction on the basis that Austin is playing, and I'll go. Oh, you're going to kill me for this, Eddie. I'll go 28-6 to Cass.
So we're going to score.
I think we'll get something.
6 points at home to Cass. I'm laughing, but really I'm crying. I think Leeds are going to win. 34 points to 18.
Dave Sinclair's has put, we're going to get battered anyway, so let's play the board against Cass. Let them take their medicine.
This has just been a slightly worse podcast than the Wigan one, but everything is shit. You can't sugarcoat it. Everything is shit in the world of Leeds Rhinos. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we didn't want to do this, but it turns out we've managed to get a good 50-minute pod in. We've had loads of engagement and loads of views. So thanks for everyone for joining us this evening. But
people laughing at us again.
we really didn't want to do this tonight.
No, we didn't.
But we felt that we had to.
Is this our second emergency pod of the season?
Yeah.
I don't think you have an emergency pod when things are going well, do you? Things are going well.
We should have probably done it when we beat Saints at round 3 this year, because that was good fun.
Yeah.
Because that would have been quite.
Instead, we just had a 4-hour podcast laughing at Saints, Johnny Lomax, Jack Wilson.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think I had hair then.
But yeah, the emergency pods, we've had to do 2 this year, which probably says a lot about the season.
I didn't think it was going to get any lower than Wakefield, did you? Thought that was...
God, I don't know. I mean, yeah. So the first time we ever did an emergency pod was the first time we ever did it, thinking that it couldn't get lower than that.
Yeah.
And we've had that beaten into us worse twice in 2 weeks.
As we were prepping or leaving the Wakefield game, we were like, yeah, the demand is there. We need to record the pod tonight. And myself and Reese are like, yeah, we'll never do this again, this emergency pod stuff. Things are only going up from here.
Luckily, we have no social life, so we can do it on a Saturday evening.
No, so we can just jump in. So, everything is shit, but we are Leeds Rhinos fans, and we will be back to review that Castleford game.
I won't be.
Oh, you won't be. So this is your last pod until...
Before we do the reviews of the season, which are going to be fucking fantastic. I am getting married next weekend. So I will not be here. And to be honest, I will be avoiding everything Leeds Rhinos related.
You won't watch. You'll just unplug after this. And,
just completely
unplug from the Rhino Matrix. And out you go. We do have another special guest lined up, which we'll announce on X later this week. I just keep saying X because it drives my wife and Reese mental.
Twitter to everyone else.
And what else was I going to say? Thank you, everybody, for joining us, for watching us live. We do live stream all of our podcasts, our match review panels, all the podcasts with our special guests. If you just go over to YouTube, search The Lot Pod or at The Lot Pod on YouTube, that's us. If you like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified on any device that you use that when we do go live. Thanks, everybody, for engaging with us tonight. We've had a really good laugh, even though, as we've said 8 times now, everything is shit. We'll be back to review the Castleford game, or I'll be back to review the Castleford game. I'm sure everybody is going to join me in wishing Reese a lovely wedding. See you later. Take care.